Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, honestly, Lisa and I had planned a lighter conversation. We enjoy each other so much. Lisa makes me laugh more than almost anyone I know. And one of the things that really appealed to us was, some fun light conversations and things where we could rid each other and the people we love and ourselves. But considering the context of the world these days, I think this is going to turn into a topic of, deeper aspects probably.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this before on pods. We brainstorm at the beginning of each season and come up with a ton of ideas. And then, as we've talked about, the listeners give us ideas and so forth. So when you wrote this title, I think we thought it was going to be funny. Like, kids these days, get off
Right.
my lawn and all that kind of stuff.
Right, because we're Gen X and we crack up at like how unsupervised we are and how much we are involved in our kids' lives. So we're sort of making fun of ourselves and the things they're used to and the things they take for granted. And I think you and I both enjoy a lot of comedy out there about this very topic. So I think we
Oh yeah.
thought we would riff on it. And
Mm-hmm.
we do over text. We crack up a lot, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But then the other day,
yeah,
just 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. I don't know. It's all blends in for me. You texted me kind of out of the blue and was like, "Do you have a few minutes? I want to talk to you about something Peter's going through."
yeah,
Say
yeah,
more.
yeah. So right, my son, who's a junior, he should be a senior, but he did a gap year, junior at college, was had already been texting the group, photos of the encampments and demonstrations going on at school, friends on both sides of a conflict feeling unsafe and upset, and really asking me questions about, like how does this, when he hears about people referring to apartheid, how does this compare to what we knew about South Africa when we were young? And I was like, well, there's a lot of ways I understand why people say that. There's a lot of ways it's very different, but it,
Yeah.
it got Lisa and I into a deeper conversation of this in fact, Liam and Peter's exact age, but also just this generation of kids. Their exact age was born unto 9/11. We've had them both on here before. They've talked about that. Liam spoke eloquently about being the generation that has grown up with active shooter drills.
Yeah.
Um, and then they're the ones who didn't have a graduation 4 years ago because of a pandemic. And then now they are, fixing to graduate. And a lot of these schools are canceling graduations because of safety and a lot of really obviously compelling reasons that we have a lot of compassion about. This isn't about like for them, although we are discussing like how does like one age group that's born into this and keeps hitting these, like not getting to have these milestones everyone
Milestones.
takes for granted, what kind of resilience and grit and otherwise, mental health effects is this having on, like, what really, because this is the tail end of mental health month, I think,
Yeah.
mental health awareness month, depending on when this airs, but I think it will air within May. And
Yep.
what is what are the long-term mental health effects of living in these times, doing toward.
Yeah. I think, right. I agree. And when we were talking about it, when we had Peter and Liam on, I don't remember it word for word because I haven't listened to it in a while, but I remember us asking, like, how does this all affect you? Active shooter drills, born in 20 or under 9/11, always being, a country in war, blah, blah, blah. And Liam was sort of reflecting that he knows no different. And obviously Peter doesn't either, and Charlotte and Miles and Griffin, like all this whole Gen Z, they don't really know anything different. Um, so I wonder sometimes if it's the parents, like we are grieving what they aren't getting. But this time, I think I really do feel super bad for the kids who are not getting to have their graduation. I live a mile away from USC. They were one of the first ones to decide to cancel their main commencement. I also live not too far from UCLA that's going through it. Um, and it just, when we were talking, it hadn't even dawned on me. I hadn't read anything about it, but all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, these are the same kids that graduated high school from their room. And now their commencement's being canceled. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can't we do better? I guess was
Like,
my thought,
I think I was telling you too that Peter and by the way, I hope it goes without saying, like, this very topic is about young people. We are not minimizing in any way
Oh, good God, no.
the purposes of these causes and like these conflicts
But
and
that's
what's
my
behind
point.
it.
Like,
Right.
these kids are doing the same things we did,
Right.
when Peter asked about apartheid, right?
We were
We
demonstrating,
we
we
were
were
going to
protesting.
Amnesty
Yes.
International. You and I walked in plenty of
Right.
row marches. Like, this is not new news,
Right.
and so the fact that these colleges can't seem to get it together to keep everyone safe and also let these kids, these young adults who have just been educated in this amazing system and have beliefs and are asking for legitimate um, things to exercise their free right to protest. Instead, they're suspending them and they're
Yeah.
arresting them and they're shutting down their commencement. No, I'm all for what the kids are doing. That's not my point. My
Exactly.
point is the
Yeah.
rest of the people.
The as Peter called it, lazy parenting. It's like, well, now we can't have nice things. And like
Yeah.
in the case of like where he goes to school, Tulane, I think as of that day, 6 people had been arrested. Only one was a student. So, you
Right.
know, like, yeah, protect and dialogue with them and understand them. I get it. So in preparation for this, I looked this morning at an article about Generation Z, but this is what caught my eye: the loneliest generation inside the Gen Z mental health crisis. Like, well, um, it says it's the most diverse cohort yet, but they're united by deep anxieties about the world around them. It's because they care, right? That's what you're saying. They care a lot. And they're really, so many of them are trying to be part of the solution, or at least, like learn more, right? It says it matters because its collision of political, economic, and social trends has minted a generation in which huge numbers of people struggle to cope with the present and feel even worse about the future. So by numbers, Gen Z, people roughly between the ages of 12 and 27, it's all of our kids, reports the poorest mental health of any generation, according to a recent Gallup and Walton Family Foundation report. 44% of Gen Zers say they feel prepared for the future.
Wow.
Good. Yeah.
Well, you always hear that old trope of like, you want your kids to do better than you did. I don't know if I feel like that's possible.
This says the big picture: they dodged the teen pitfalls of lower teen pregnancy rates and lower rates of alcohol use. Instead, they're grappling with alarming rates of loneliness and suicidal thoughts. So our generation was getting drunk and pregnant and having more fun. Maybe is that what that's trying to say? I don't
we
know
were
what that's trying to say.
self-medicating. We were
Exactly.
self-medicating.
Wow. Yeah. Like they're trying to do things right and they're lonely and worried. That's
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not surprised. I mean, the loneliness also comes from feeling like you're connected when it's all through a screen. And I love social media. I have no issues with social media. My kids they dabble in Instagram. They've never spent a ton of time on there. Although I will, and I may have shared this story before, but Charlotte got in trouble when she was maybe 13 or 14, and we took her phone away and gave her a flip phone. And so she obviously had no access to social media, and she within days thanked us because she felt like she was young enough at that time that she was like, I can't handle it. I know I can't handle it. And I wanted to get off of social media and I didn't know how. And ever since she got her phone back, she really is barely on it.
I love that.
I'm the most, and Liam dips in and out, and now he's kind of getting back in because it is a place as a young adult where you make connections, and I think it is important for you to have a presence when you're getting out there in the world and trying to show your art. In Liam's case, so it's. But I think the loneliness comes from that. You think you're connected, but you're not really, because everything's through a phone.
Right. It's interesting because the next part I was going to share with you. First of all, 70% of Gen Zers around the world say they're involved in social political cause.
Snaps to that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it says where did it say this about news? They're being fed the news whether they want it or not. And it makes me think about you and how you take care of your mental health by not being fed the news.
Well,
right?
but my kids would have said pre-2020, that, yes, that's all we had on was the news. And they would get, oh God, I don't want to watch this. I don't, it's annoying, or it's boring, or it's sad, or it's upsetting. Even now, like, I pretty much get my news from Seth Meyers
I
and
love that.
Charlotte.
It's such a
Charlotte won't,
great way to.
yeah, gallows humor all the way. And Charlotte, really, for the most part, she loves Seth, but she won't watch that kind of stuff. So they do try to. I think they know what they want to know. They know enough to know what's going on without bathing in it. Like I
Yeah,
probably made them do when they were younger. They used to be able to sing theme songs on for NPR
yeah.
shows.
I mean, I think they're growing up in a much more, I don't know. I don't know what the adjective is, but they're growing up in a way we didn't. Like, I think
Mm,
I can only speak for myself, because I think you and I had very different ideologies in our childhood, me growing up in Orange County, but definitely I admit having some idealism and some optimism, or some taking for granted of what the future might have for me, what I might be able to accomplish. And like, even if I were to dick around, I knew I'd figure something out, right? Like, I knew I could if I wanted to. And um I think I just had a lot more idealism, whereas I feel like just automatically, I don't think Peter or his peers trust that anyone in charge has done anything right, or that they can trust. And I get that. I agree
totally.
with that, but I
Yep.
didn't have that awareness at that age. I wasn't thinking everyone was good. I wasn't like that clueless, but I think I believed that I could figure stuff out. And just an example, he's a math and political economy major, and he went to that conference where he presented his research. It's like, gosh, the job fair was interesting. It was like all military and NASA and all these people mining for these mines that they want to use to help them build, weapons, maybe. Or like, he just wasn't
Wow.
sure, but that's what it felt like, right? He felt
Yeah.
like, oh, that's interesting. My engineering and math and physics friends are a little bit, and maybe it's because in the shadow of Oppenheimer, they're like, what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I think they're much more wary and aware of, like, uh hidden agendas.
Yeah, and that could be a really good thing. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm all for being optimistic and assuming the best and assuming that everything's going to work out the way it should, right? I definitely sit in that space. But healthy skepticism never hurt anyone, as long as it doesn't keep you from making forward movement. And hopefully, I mean, I think our kids aren't doing that. I hope others aren't as well. I hope they aren't paralyzed by their skepticism.
Yeah, I can't even compare this. I do, when we go through, acute trauma with Griffin, I can definitely pull away from what's going on in the world, and my kids or you or someone will say, "Did you hear about XYZ?" And I'd say 50% of the time I might haven't. Usually I think I'm pretty good about staying clued in. I mean, I was a poli sci major. I've always been a political junkie, but I haven't, been. There's sometimes where sleep is more the priority, and I don't have my phone near me. Um,
Good.
but I think about, like, social issues and global events are just constant right now. It is constant. And like, I was talking to a friend of mine recently about this, like, are we outraged enough? And she said, are we ever? And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, because we were outraged about Ukraine. That's still going on. It's still
Yep.
horrific every day, but it gets replaced by the new thing to be outraged about,
Yep.
the outrage, the horror, and the grief over what was happening in Maui, feels like
Yeah.
a blip right now, but it doesn't to the people who are affected.
Yep.
Um, and like, just in terms of how the news cycle is, and what the collective conversations are, and what does that do to a young mind and heart, and like the ability to hope, plan, and dream, and you know, I don't know.
I,
I think you and I looked at each other last week and we're like, some days it feels so doomful. You just want to say yes to everything.
yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I do feel that way. I have those moments, probably tied to pain. But I think the thing is, it's not like all this stuff wasn't in some way, shape, or form happening when we were their
Yeah.
age, but there were three networks. There was no social media. There was no internet. What it is the ability to be connected in on every single thing that's happening. And so, if Liam were to come to me and ask for guidance around this, and let's say he had 5 things he was focusing on, I'd probably ask him to pick one that felt most like close to his heart and focus on that, and not, we can't change everything, but we can impact little things. To
Mm.
me right now, I feel like what I can do is make sure I vote and Charlotte votes and all of Charlotte's friends vote, because this is their first year of voting.
Yeah,
and
Miles
and
too. Miles too.
and Miles too. And not become so overwhelmed by the amount of things that are going on, so as to think that you have no voice and you have no way of affecting change. The way you affect change is at the ballot box,
Mm.
whether, yeah, yeah.
You can go there.
Well, I'm just saying, like, obviously we watched the attempt on January 6th for the ballot box to be null and void. That's why we got to come out even stronger this year.
Mhm.
If you follow me on social media, would I love it not to be an 81-year-old man? Absolutely, I would love it not to be an 81-year-old man. But I'll tell you what, the idea that Trump is in office right now handling this
Mhm.
Israeli Hamas bullshit, I
Yeah.
cannot even comprehend. Well, we know what he tried to do with the Ukraine. So it's,
Yeah.
even if you're not happy with the choices, you have to vote, and vote for the person who's going to do the best possible job. And Trump is not it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I just lost a whole bunch of our listeners, but it
I
just is
doubt
what
it.
it
I
is.
doubt anyone.
I know,
I
but you
doubt
never
that's a
know.
shock to anyone who is hear us.
True.
Um, yeah, I just keep thinking about like what shaped my worldview, right?
Yeah.
And what is shaping theirs. They have the internet, there's constant access to trauma, to negativity, but also positivity, also like connecting with people with like minds. There's constant, we have proof from studies on this that there's constant comparison. So there's much higher rates of self-criticism and self-judgment and depression and isolation because of things they have access to, and there's also much higher exposure to stuff. So what shaped my worldview? And like, are my kids getting some of that too, right? Like, and I think so. Like, definitely very, very lucky, you and I both, that we had parents that we could count on, that we felt loved, that we had some sense of community. And I definitely was raised with uh a faith practice. It wasn't shoved down my throat, it was just what my family did and was about. And a lovely extended family. And I think that helped. In terms of my identity, though, like anyone at any time in history, you still have to kind of come through that and figure out like what's theirs and what's mine, and who am I in this world. um but I think about that, like, what is shaping my kids' worldview, and how could I even begin to understand that, because they live at a different time and I can't. And I the only thing I can do is, you aren't either. We aren't people that can just pretend that we got it covered and we know what's going on. We are looking at them like, and the word we can't stand anymore, unprecedented. Like, we are learning this together. Here's what I
100%.
know, and here's what I'm hoping. And here, it's more important than ever to know who you are. It's more important than ever to, like, really be present, authentic, and kind with yourself and others. And it's really important to like kind of do that internal work so that you're not adding to the chaos and the vitriol of the world. But other than that, like, yeah, I don't know. I do think when you live in history affects a lot of your mental health and who you are and the choices you make.
Yeah, I mean, immediately when you said what shaped my identity, I mean, MTV shaped my
Yeah.
identity, but MTV brought Rock the Vote. It brought um, Sun City. It brought We're the World, and
Yeah.
Feed the World. Like it brought the things that I ended up caring about,
Yeah.
even the AIDS crisis, right? Like
True.
that stuff all came through MTV for me. That's what shaped my political beliefs. And then having friends who were also involved. So I think, community as well, finding those like-minded people, recognizing that you may have some differences of opinion, and also being able to have discourse and conversation in a respectful agree to disagree situation. I mean, I miss the days when like my stepdad was a Republican and we used to have nice conversations. I mean, I was on one side and he was on the other, but there was no hatred. There was no like, there was
Mhm.
there, it what happens now, the whole mega cancel bullshit, like that is,
Yeah.
I miss having conversation with people that I didn't agree with, that didn't end up in name calling,
And no
you
one on
know.
either side believes actual facts anymore because of who's saying it. So
Right.
it's just like when I lived in DC in the early 90s, you would see Bob Dole and Joe Biden. I
Mm-hmm.
literally saw them at lunch together.
Yeah.
That was when they were in the Clarence Thomas here. Well, he not him. I think it was Arlen Specter. It was on the other side, but I definitely saw Bob Dole. Anyway, they used to like those guys, those old guys. He's still around. They used to
Mm.
they used to like that was the norm, that people
Yeah.
from opposite sides of the aisle would have lunch, they would have dinner, they would have respectful conversations.
Yeah.
And I think it's much easier when you didn't have a keyboard to hide behind. I think that's what we can all agree, that people get behind their keyboard and be those
Yep.
jockeys who say horrific things that they wouldn't say to someone's face, or that at least not used to.
Yeah.
Um, so we've definitely lost some decorum and some humanity there. I think too that just the idea that we get so caught up in, and our kids don't do this. They don't really care about either party. They're disappointed in the party system. So
Totally.
I'm hoping that dies away too. And at some point, everybody looks at them and sees their disappointment, and we start to like burn through with like a new system of some kind, because they're just seeming so disappointed in how all this is going. And it is disheartening to want to
Yeah.
like go out and be part of something. And they're like, I don't want to plug into either of these systems. These suck.
Yeah, I don't blame them. It is what we have right now. I have a friend who was like, let's get Biden reelected and then let's start focusing on like AOC and the next
Mm,
generation. And that keeps running through my brain. Like, okay, we just need to get through this election. We just need to get through this election. In the grand scheme of things, I do think that I think Gen Z might not know what they don't know in terms of how it's affecting their mental health, right? I think, again, as parents
mhm.
who we are, as you just said, right? We're building the plane with them as it's flying. So we're also thinking about how it's affecting our mental health and our optimism and our uh, belief that the next generation is going to do even better than us. I still think they will. It just looks different than what the old
Yeah.
fashioned American dream looks like. And I think that because they don't know what they don't know, they are going to forge on, and they are so well connected and so well educated on the world and not just themselves and not just America and
Mhm.
America first and all that stuff. Um, that I do actually think I do feel optimistic about Gen Z and what they're going to do to change the world. And, they are pretty open about mental health struggles and willing to seek help in a way, again, that I don't think I know Gen X didn't do, and boomers. I don't really know much about millennials, but I think they know how to take care of themselves. They know how to seek help. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
I mean, some of the stuff that we laugh at and that we repost or just send each other, I mean, some of that stuff still comes up and cracks me up. And at the same time, I'm like, to be fully transparent, I'm aware that sometimes I'm proud of things that might not have been healthy, right? Like when my kids say things like, I mean, I don't want to work full time in summer. I want to have a summer. And I'm like, I worked 3 jobs one summer to be able to afford to do those things. You know what I mean? Like, why,
Yeah.
you're young? Why don't you just make your work friends your fun, and like see your other friends are going to be working too. Like, I have this response to a lot of things. Like, if you can't work hard now, when are you gonna? So I want to say I'm aware that that might not be healthy. We interviewed someone
Right.
whose things coming up super impressive, and like that idea that you fill all your time doing stuff may not be like, it's something we're proud of, and it creates a lot, and it certainly can build things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not the best for mental health. So there
Yeah.
might be something too, like, hey, I also wanted a summer. I wanted to get out in nature more. It's kind of in my, it's in my genetic DNA, and my parents and me going, well, that must be nice,
Oh, 100%. I
and
mean,
like, get off your
Darren,
ass and go work.
yeah, no.
So,
But okay, but going back, okay, so yes, but I know Peter's story, you know Liam's, right? Like Liam is always calling and trying to figure out how to budget better and look for another job. And now that he's graduating college, he's looking at, okay, I'm going to keep the job I have because it's pretty easy peasy, but I'm going to be doing some side hustles and be trying to build my
right.
career in this way while I'm also working. I mean, Liam worked his entire, yeah, I guess, God, his entire college career, he had a job. And it wasn't like the job you just get at college. It was, I mean, it was retail, but I mean, it wasn't like, easy peasy. And so again, it's like, yeah, they asked for a little bit, and we immediately jumped to, I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes on. And that's not really what they're asking for. They're asking for a little flexibility, a little spaciousness to grow while they're also building their business. Peter's trying to figure out what of a million internships he's going to take this year, right? So it's
And right.
funny.
He has worked a lot. He has worked, and
As
I
Miles
mean,
and
yeah. So yeah, Peter like definitely worked. He came home. He knew what he wanted to do when he got back from New Zealand, so he worked his butt off to be able to do it. Right. So you're right. And he's going to graduate early with 2 majors. So I didn't mean to make him sound like lazy. It's just that's my response when my
right,
kids actually say something healthy, like, and so I'm
right.
really kind of slamming myself while I'm also laughing at them when they say something like, well, I kind of wanted a summer. I'm like, what is that, your birthright? Work your, go work. I had to work. There's that kind of response sometimes that makes me want to roll my eyes. But, and I am, as you know, I will defend millennials like at the wazoo, because I've worked with some of the most incredibly community service minded people ever who are also millennials. But I also have, and you have too, we've interacted with and had to do some business with people who are like, what, you have feedback from me? I need to go home for the day. Like, and so
Yeah,
there's those stereotypical ones that actually
yeah,
exist for a reason.
yep.
And again, that's not like all of everyone, and it doesn't even mean anything necessarily about us. I just think we're of an older generation that kind of reacts to everything like, what?
Well, we were the latchkey kids. We were we
Yeah,
were all the things
we
that
were the
Gen
ones
X
who
is.
weren't really supposed to let our feelings get in the way of hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I literally just saw the meme right before we got on and recording this, and it's been going on forever, of like, these kids go out and have to take the day off of school. We stay out to the clubs till 5 o'clock, came home, changed clothes, and went to work. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I had one of those nights for sure,
Yeah.
But
and, and,
but to your
and we
point,
have
is
some
that healthy?
pride. We have a lot of pride in that. Like, I have a lot of
Yeah.
pride that I work 3 jobs and I blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
and I think I think like our Gen Z kids are teaching us to laugh and be transparent about all of that. We can be both. We can be proud of it and realize it's a little fucked up, probably.
And I guarantee you, when they have kids this age, they're going to be riding their kids and they're going to
Oh,
be doing their version of walking uphill.
I'm actually pretty sure Liam and Peter do that a little bit with Charlotte and Miles already. They're a little bit like, oh, come
That's true.
on.
That is true. You're right.
Yeah.
You're
They're
right.
like
You're right.
rolling their eyes.
All it
Like,
takes is getting out of the house to understand, what's different. Of course, Charlotte's about to embark in that herself. Ultimately, I think what all the world could use is a little bit more empathy and understanding, and stop being so self I want to say self-centered in thinking that the way we did things was the way they should do things. And so
right. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so as we're thinking about, because again, I think we worry more than they worry about what this does to their mental health, possibly from ignorance. And so if it's just like, okay, let's just take each day as it comes.
Yeah, I think this circles back to what you and I were kind of saying we're disappointed about in these administrations too. Like, oh, your audience here. These kids are not to be treated like petulant
Criminals.
children or criminals.
Mm-hmm.
despite what's going, like no matter what side they're on, there
Yeah.
is the issue of safety, there is the issue of like grief,
Yep.
trauma, liberation. There's like all things on the table are worthy topics. And these are brilliant kids who are willing to like give up frat parties to go, you know, discuss these things or fight for these things, no matter what side they're on. And so treating them like a frat party that gets out of control is really not seeing their level of maturity that they like had to be born into, like, and everything that they're aware of. They don't have any rose colored glasses. They
Mm-mm.
don't have any idea that like they aren't being blatantly disrespectful. They're literally hurting.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, I
so
think,
yeah, our response to them needs to be to like see them as adults and have adult conversation.
I think just the fact that kids are getting suspended from college and the protest grows bigger. These aren't kids doing this to get out of school. These are kids doing this, for some self-serving reason. They're trying to
Yeah.
make their mark on the world and help and be supportive, and then to turn around and suspend them is just it's mind-boggling.
I mean,
It's so disappointing.
I know that's not what this is about, but what was so interesting was to see he rode his bike over there on his way to work, and or maybe he was on his way to something else. I can't remember, but he took some video, and it
Mm.
was like just a bunch of people eating chicken, like, and playing some music. And then video that was on news feeds showed, cops like wrestling kids to the ground. And
Yep.
obviously both things happened,
Yep.
but it's an interesting thing, like what it's made to sound like and what the intention was. Like there was some intentions for so often there's intentions for peaceful protests, and those happen.
Yeah.
And then when things get out of control, I mean, I live in Portland, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it looks like to everybody. Like we are burning our city down here.
Yeah.
We
When
we
it wasn't burning.
right. We are burning our city down now, and we don't care about anything, and we're total anarchists. And we were weren't we, by the attorney general at the time, declared an anarchist state or something like that, right? And we literally had like a wall of moms, holding on to each other down and holding flowers and stuff. So I'm not saying both things didn't happen, but there's such a distortion and a way of really dismissing what's happening for these young people as they're trying to make sense of it, as they're trying to understand what's just, and like what's unfair on all sides here. And as like I've listened to a lot of leaders talk about this, and like you cannot have one extremist without the other. They lose oxygen without the other. But most people are somewhere in the middle here. They're humans trying to raise children somewhere, and they're humans trying to become adults everywhere. And these like sound bites and these big sweeping like lazy parenting decisions of just canceling stuff, like I just think it's making it worse.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So ultimately, listening, being communicative, having safe spaces where everybody feels seen and heard without being whisked away by cops. Ah, we got to do better.
I know. I know. I love that Liam, like when I think about Liam, I think about art and then music for Peter, right? Like
Yeah.
these are such great outlets. And I want to say it's like controlled anarchy or like a beautiful anarchy. It's a way, like it's a beautiful way for them to not escape, but like self-soothe and
Yeah.
express
Yep.
themselves. And I really feel like the more and more I observe this in my children, from the way they've responded to the trauma around Griffin and trauma in the world, including the pandemic, with going deeper into music and the way they play music and enjoy it. I feel like that is such great, not just, maybe not an anecdote, it's not going to fix anything, but it is some of the best coping I've ever observed. And I didn't do that. Like playing piano was such a thing that I felt pressured to do. So I didn't do that as like a self-soothing thing. And I look back and that would have been great. I wish I had.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for our kids that they have that.
Oh, I agree 100%. So speaking of music,
Yeah.
we had a couple of ideas. Smells Like Teen Spirit, Kids Are All Right, like, oh, good choices. And then divine right timing, right before we started recording our pods today, Ann Burns Casey gets another shout out. She was the one who suggested talking about chronic pain, which we did 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And she did a post today about being on the treadmill at the Y, and a song came on that she didn't know, and she almost stopped it, but she didn't do it quick enough, and she got sucked into the song. And it's from Noah Kahan and Brandi Carlile. And it's called, shoot, now I've lost what it, oh, You're Gonna Go Far. I'm going to attempt to read the lyrics here in a second, but before I do that, I want to read what Noah Kahan said about this song.
Okay, I had to pull it up since you didn't give it to me, because I suspect I might have to help you. Okay,
you
go
might
ahead.
have to, but I'm going to try really hard to make it through this. And maybe if I read this first, it'll help. So he said, this is only part of what he said on TikTok, but he said, You're Gonna Go Far is a song about that warmth. It's an acknowledgement of change and evolution, and a reminder that some things will be here forever. As someone beautifully put it in the comment of the YouTube video for this song, it is the gentle push on one's shoulder and the tender reminder to follow your dreams wherever they lead, and we'll be here when you get back. That we all need sometimes. Lord knows I do. Because Noah Kahan is very young. And in fact, I have a friend whose nephew plays for him and co-writes some of his songs. So
wow.
I'm very excited to share this. Okay, so the song, Wish Me Luck. The song is You're Gonna Go Far. And I'm only going to read some of it, but it is a great song. Okay, it says, This is a good land, or at least it was. It takes a strong hand and a sound mind. The college kids are getting so young, ain't they? They're correcting all the grammar on a spray paint. And I even gave up driving after nightfall. I got tired of the frat boys with their brights on. Then it goes on and says, I'm skipping some lyrics, but it says, so pack up your car, put a hand on your heart, say whatever you feel, be wherever you are. This is where it's going to get hard. We ain't angry at you, love. You're the greatest thing we've lost. The birds will still sing. Your folks will still fight. The boards will still creak. The leaves will still die. We ain't angry at you, love. We'll be waiting for you, love.
I started crying, so I'm glad you didn't. Because after that, it says like, we'll all be here forever. And I love that. I love that. That's something you can count on, is the people. My son has said that so many times. Whenever his faith gets shaken, he thinks about two things. He thinks about his family, and he thinks about mountains, because that's like his place. That's his go-to, like things he can count on.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I mean, here I've got Charlotte going off to college. I've got Liam graduating from college. And it is that moment in time where it's like, you do always have the safe space. And if you're out there in the world and you don't feel safe, I hope kids have somewhere that they feel safe, whether it's with a biological family, of a family they've created.
Yes,
whatever
exactly.
It is.
Chosen family is just as valuable and sometimes less shitty.
Totally. So it was a great song, and I didn't get through it without crying. But
I got to share this one other part of it that I just thought.
Please.
We're overdue for a revival. We spent so long just getting by, but that's the thing about survival. Who the hell likes living just to die?
Yeah, this is a really, and his voice is great, and I love Brandi Carlile too.
Yes.
So thanks again, Ann Casey, for another influence on this month's two shout outs in 1 month. Yeah, that's my point, you guys. We listen to you. So whether you know Kari and I, and you can send something to us directly. If you have an idea about something you want us to talk about, please send it, because we really like bringing you into this conversation for sure.
And I also want to just applaud us, because this is what we wanted. We were always having these conversations anyway.
Right.
And we wanted to be like, look, we're talking about it anyway. Let's just talk about it and record it. So we so want to hear your thoughts around this, even if it's different than ours. We're processing. Yeah. We're in pain, and we're processing just like everyone else. And we don't, this is what we know. This is what we think. This is what we're asking.
Yeah.
We have all the answers yet.
Yeah. And to go full circle back to the beginning. Yeah, I mean, we would love for every one of these pods to just be rip roaring fun, but the point is, these are the things we know. This is what we're
Yes.
talking about. This is what's happening in the moment. And maybe, I mean, God is willing, this pod at 3 years from now will make no sense. But who knows?
That would be
So depending
awesome.
on when you're listening to, yeah, it would be awesome. So if you have a college graduate or a high school graduate, and this touched your heart, maybe you want to sit and have a conversation, maybe you want to listen to it with them. We would love that for sure.
I would love that too. Give them big hugs.
Yeah. And we will be back next week with something else we know.
Yeah, we're super excited about just coming to you every week like this, because that's all we wanted, was to just have these conversations and have you join us by letting us know what you want to hear more of. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that idea too.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.